Aswat is believed to be the mastermind of all the bombings in London.
On the 7/7 and 7/21, this is the guy, we think.
This is the guy, and what's really embarrassing is that the entire British police are out chasing him, and one wing of the British government, MI6, or the British Secret Service,
Right,
has been hiding him. And this has been a real source of contention between CIA,
Hold on, John.
Justice Department, and Britain.
MI6 has been hiding him. Are you saying that he has been working for them?
Oh, I'm not saying it. This is what the Muslim sheikh said in an interview in a British newspaper back in 2001.
So he's a double agent, or what?
He's a double agent.
He's
Yeah,
working for the... So he's working for the Brits to try to give them information about Al-Qaeda, but in reality, he's still an Al-Qaeda operative.
Yeah, the CIA and the Israelis all accused MI6 of letting all these terrorists live in London, not because they were getting Al-Qaeda information, but for appeasement. It was one of those you leave us alone, we leave you alone kind of things. Now, we knew about this guy Aswat. Back in 1999, he came to America. The Justice Department wanted to indict him in Seattle because him and his buddy were trying to set up a terrorist training school in Oregon.
So they indicted his buddy, right? But why didn't they indict him?
Well, it comes out, we've just learned that the headquarters of the U.S. Justice Department ordered the Seattle prosecutors not to touch Aswat.
Hello. Now, hold on. Why?
And that's, well, apparently Aswat was working for British intelligence.
In the weeks after 7/7, Aswat was arrested in Zambia. He was subsequently sent back to the UK and is still, at this moment, in HMP Belmarsh. The US are trying to extradite him back there under terrorist charges. Several media outlets have reported that Aswat was in communication with the so-called suicide bombers on the day of 7/7. Yet this information, although being taken seriously by certain quarters in the intelligence services, is not being taken seriously by the Met. They have failed so far to question Aswat in connection with his suspected role in the bombings.
The intelligence community considers Al-Mujahideen, the organisation that Aswat was associated with, to have been a British-based recruiting wing of a larger terrorist network. It is understood that since the 1990s, the British security services have allowed Muslims to be recruited and trained in order for them to fight in conflicts around the world, where their role would be beneficial to the state. Crispin Black, the former Cabinet Office intelligence analyst, has suggested that the failure to pursue many terrorist suspects in Britain is as a result of an appeasement known as the Covenant of Security. According to Black, this refers to the long-standing British habit of providing refuge and welfare to Islamic extremists on the unspoken assumption that if we give them a safe haven here, they will not attack on these shores. There are some unconfirmed reports that Khan and the other men were in contact with members of Al-Mujahideen. If this is true, then the men may have been assisted by terrorists linked to the organisation. In other words, it is possible that terrorists trained with the aid of British intelligence agencies may have instructed and trained the four men. The government reports do not reveal whether associates of Al-Mujahideen were linked in any way to the bombings. Its spiritual leader, Omar Bakri, was banned from Britain shortly after 7/7. As a result, he has yet to be questioned for his possible role in the attack. It is also notable that the reports make no attempt to assess the warnings provided by the Saudis, the Americans and the French. A leaked 4-page Joint Intelligence Committee report revealed that there was prior knowledge of plans to attack the London Underground network. The reports again do not reveal what this intelligence was based on. The events which occurred on the 21st and 22nd of July are still surrounded in mystery. All of the men arrested for the incidents on the 21st have pleaded not guilty to the charges of attempted murder and conspiracy to cause explosions. Some claim to have purposely made dummy bombs and profess that their plan was to intimidate rather than to kill or maim. Nothing about these incidents appears to make any sense. Why John Charles de Menendez was shot over half a dozen times in the head as he boarded a tube in Stockwell Station is also still a matter with no satisfactory explanation. The police lied to the public about his behaviour, and CCTV evidence, critical to the investigation, was tampered with, although it is not clear by whom. What is clear is that after these two events, the 7th of July bombings quickly became old news, just at the very point mainstream journalists had started to ask pertinent questions. The terrorist alert level had been lowered more than a month before the attacks, from severe general to substantial. It is not clear why MI5 advised the government to reduce the threat level. The meeting of the G8 leaders in Scotland was surely a time when security should have been increased.
We are united in our resolve to confront and defeat this terrorism that is not an attack on one nation, but on all nations and on civilized people everywhere.
At the time, the G8 had made little real progress with debt relief or abolishing poverty. But this fact was barely reported due to the inevitable focus on the bombings.
The war on terror goes on. I was most impressed by the resolve of all the leaders in the room. Their resolve is as strong as my resolve, and that is we will not yield to these people. We will not yield to the terrorists.
Since the July 7 attacks, further anti-terror legislation has been passed. The biometric identity scheme has been approved, and the legislative and regulatory reform bill has been proposed. It would give ministers the power to amend any law passed by Parliament. The government have taken political advantage of the attacks, using them as an effective rallying cry when seeking support for changes long on their agenda. Many who saw these laws as evidence of increasing totalitarianism prior to 7/7 now see them as acceptable in the climate of fear created by the bombings.
Due to the conflicting and unconfirmed stories published in the media and the distinct lack of well-sourced information, it is impossible to say exactly what happened in London on the 7th of July 2005. The two government reports make no attempt to explain the anomalies in the explosives used. They make no reference to the coincidence of a counter-terrorist exercise taking place that morning. They do not investigate Haroon Rashid Aswat, reported to be both the mastermind of the attacks and an MI6 agent. The inquiries do not deal with the Khan video or the Al-Qaeda claims. And most importantly, there is no attempt to explain why there are so few CCTV images of the men in London and in Luton. If there is no definitive proof that the men were suicide bombers, then why isn't this made clear? The two government reports do not give a detailed or definitive account. They only raise more questions than they answer. The British public must question why ministers will not allow open and independent scrutiny of the evidence. The British people must exercise their democratic rights and insist there is a full-scale inquiry into the events of July the 7th.
Well, we're just about to bring them in a moment, so
This is a professional home video.
don't they've got a contact number they can ring you on.
Oh, I haven't actually got a mobile on me, mate.
So your number was?
It's 07
Yeah.